What's up everyone, and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Conor McGregor trolling Khabib over his UFC Hall of Fame induction. Conor McGregor still has contempt for Khabib Nurmagomedov despite having already gotten their hands on each other back in 2018 for the lightweight belt. Conor still considers Khabib his biggest nemesis, and he's put his disdain for the retired Dagestani legend on full display in a recent tweet. Khabib, who retired in October 2020 undefeated and as the undisputed UFC lightweight champion, was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame last week during International Fight Week. Khabib is a consensus Hall of Famer, with nobody doubting his credentials. The man beat up on guys throughout his career and made it look easy. He was so dominant, he barely lost a round. In fact, if anyone was able to resist Khabib's takedowns and provide some form of a challenge for him, that was regarded as a big deal. That's how good Khabib was. Days after Khabib was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame alongside his longtime aka teammate Daniel Cormier, Conor is now making posts that harken back to a time of infamy. In a recent tweet, Conor posted a photo of the post-fight brawl following the UFC 229 clash between Khabib and Conor. Khabib submitted Conor that night, but the Eagle then jumped out of the cage to have a go at McGregor's team, and it spilled into the cage. Conor posted a photo from that night that shows Khabib's cousin and current UFC fighter Abu Bakr Nurmagomedov eating a punch from McGregor with a caption that read, "Bang of shite off them all. Stick that in the Hall of Fame." Conor also posted a tweet about his credentials relating to the UFC Hall of Fame. This is what he stated: "Looking forward to my own Hall of Fame entry all the same. I'm a shoo-in. First off, everything. All the records, KO speed, knockdown amount, KOs most divisions, financials, you name it. No rush though, I'm still in to bust noses open and put opponents unconscious. A real goer." Since entering the promotion in 2013, McGregor has taken the MMA world by storm and developed into a bona fide superstar, not just in MMA, but in all of sport. From becoming the UFC's first ever simultaneous champ at featherweight and lightweight, to being a pay-per-view selling machine, to having the fastest title fight win in history, to the most consecutive post-fight bonuses in UFC history, and so much more. At the moment, he's back training after suffering a leg break last July in his trilogy loss to Dustin Poirier, and reports say he could come back later this year or early next year to the cage. What do you think about Conor's comments regarding the Hall of Fame? Do you think he's a shoo-in? Jiri Prochazka jokes over Dustin Poirier-Michael Chandler scuffle at UFC 276. Newly minted light heavyweight champion Jiri Prochazka was sitting cage side at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas this past weekend to check out the UFC 276 fights. He was right next to Dustin Poirier and nearby Gilbert Burns, who was ready with his phone to capture the moments when Poirier and Michael Chandler began yapping at each other. The exchange turned a lot of heads, as Poirier is especially known for keeping calm, staying cool, and not really getting into any of the trash talk with other fighters. But he was clearly upset with Chandler, enough to start yelling obscenities at him. In a recent interview with Helen Yee, Jiri talks about how he was sitting next to Poirier when he started to blurt things out to Chandler. Let Jiri take it from here.
To talk some trash talks and all this stuff for the Michael, and they start to talk together. Nothing what was surprised for me, but I saved them.
People are actually speculating that Poirier was upset over Chandler not calling him out, and then later saying that he simply forgot about Poirier and that he wouldn't generate the type of excitement and money that a McGregor or Oliveira fight would. Both men have been taking shots at each other, with Poirier criticizing Chandler's run in the UFC, saying he hasn't beaten anybody coming off a win, a similar criticism he had for Colby Covington. Still, what do you make of Jiri's story? And do you feel the UFC will set up a fight between Poirier and Chandler? With fans calling the Adesanya Cannonier fight boring, Brendan Schaub hits back. The main event for UFC 276 saw Israel Adesanya outpoint Jared Cannonier to successfully retain the 185-pound strap. Adesanya looked good in there, showing the speed that has made him the middleweight champion, along with showcasing a few times his improving takedown defense. Cannonier couldn't get much going offensively, and the judges awarded Adesanya the unanimous decision victory. But some fans, and even fellow fighters, have criticized the main event for being a boring fight. Even former UFC heavyweight Brendan Schaub described the fight as a snooze fest, before pivoting to say that This is Cannonier's fault, not Izzy's. Some faulted Adesanya for hyping up the matchup and not delivering a finish or anything that they consider excitement. But Schaub, in a recent episode of The Schaub Show, stated this.
Now, was that main event a bit of a snooze fest? Yeah, I'll give you that. My issue is not with Izzy. Izzy's the champ. Jared Cannonier wants what Izzy has. It's up to him to make the fight.
Schaub goes on to say that if the challenger or opponent doesn't bring the fight to him, then you get something similar to the Yoel Romero fight, which was basically a sleeping pill personified in a fight. Do you agree with Schaub here? Don't forget to take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the MMA Zone to stay up to date on all of the latest fight news. Eugene Bareman doesn't know how you can't say Volkanovski is the pound-for-pound best. City kickboxing coach Eugene Bareman knows a thing or two about champions, having developed Israel Adesanya into a savage and the reigning middleweight champion. He's also worked alongside Alexander Volkanovski for quite a few years, given the connection between Brad Riddell, Kai Kara-France, Dan Hooker, and Volkanovski thanks to their time in Phuket, Thailand. Volkanovski successfully defended his featherweight title once again over Max Holloway, this time putting on a striking clinic against the ex-champion. The win extended his win streak to 22 fights dating back to 2013, the longest active streak in the UFC. He's also 12-0 in the UFC, 10-0 in the featherweight division with 4 successful title defenses. He's talked about moving up in weight to challenge for the lightweight title, and quite frankly, he should. He's bested the greatest that the featherweight division could throw at him, and not only survived, but has thrived and looked better and better each time. That's why Coach Bareman stated this.
Gobsmacked. I'm like, wow, just when you think he's good and he's at his best, he just finds another level. And yeah, what a masterclass. If that's not the best pound for pound fighter in the world, then I don't know who else is.
Even Max Holloway stated that Volkanovski was the pound for pound best shortly after the fight on Saturday. The Australian native has made a solid case for being the greatest featherweight in history, although there are some that would argue still Jose Aldo. At the moment, he's ranked number 2 in the UFC pound for pound rankings, right behind Kamaru Usman. But right now, as it stands, do you feel that Volkanovski is the best pound for pound fighter in the sport?
Hey Charles, do your thing, bro. Wait till Conor comes back. Do your thing. You know what? You deserve it. On a couple fight win streak, smashing through everybody. Why don't you sit out, wait for Conor to come back. I'll keep the division warm. I'll keep the division going. I'll fight Islam next. I'll fight Islam next for the title. And then whenever you get your so-called super fight, do your thing, get it out of your system, and you can come back to our division. See you at the top.
Urijah Faber goes off on UFC over treatment of Josh Emmett, who issues his response. Josh Emmett is tied at number 3 in the featherweight rankings, alongside Jiri Prochazka. Emmett is coming off a split decision victory over Calvin Kattar in the main event of their UFC Austin Fight Night show. He was able to do enough to get past the very tough Kattar and is now in the top 5 of the rankings. Given the fact that featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski has already beaten the 2 guys ranked ahead of him in Max Holloway and Brian Ortega, and the fact that Holloway beat both Ortega and Rodriguez, it would stand to reason that Emmett is high up on the list of potential challengers for the featherweight title, should the champion choose. For this reason, Emmett was out and about for the International Fight Week festivities that led into the UFC 276 event. But according to his coach, Urijah Faber, it doesn't look like the UFC was showing any kind of respect to Emmett, placing him in the back to watch the pay-per-view. Faber went on about how Emmett was being ghosted at the event. Now, in a recent interview with MMA Junkie, Emmett was asked about what happened, and Faber's comments specifically. This is what the Arizona native stated.
He's just looking out for me. Yeah, of course I was pissed, but no, they don't need to reach out to me. They don't. I was kind of pissed because I wanted to sit cage side and watch that fight close, and then it's like I was on the floor, but I was like towards the very back, and then just a bunch of other things that went on. Just it was just like a snowball effect that I just kept getting like more pissed.
Emmett went on to talk about how he believes he's the next contender for the belt, not only due to the rankings, but also his 5-fight win streak. He stated he'd be happy to fight in Australia and how much of an honor it would be to take on Volkanovski, whom he called one of the pound-for-pound best. What do you think about Emmett's treatment at UFC 276? And do you feel that Emmett is the #1 contender for the featherweight belt? Thanks so much for joining us today. What do you make of what's going on in the fight world? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all the latest news from the MMA Zone. See you next time.